Here's the street I'm staying on, Saint Ursula. And I believe it's called that because the Ursulite order was here for a while when the French were occupying the island. Valletta, where we were exploring earlier today, and you can see at night it takes on a completely different atmosphere. One thing I like about Valletta is that even though it's a capital city, it has a very small town feel to it. It's very relaxing, like no one seems to rush here, and it's also a very safe city. Yeah, very pleasant place, but only thing is I didn't expect it to be so hot here. Every time I go out I end up having to rinse off in the shower because it's so sweaty. I'm only here for one night. I'm trying to take in as much as possible, using every opportunity to sightsee. And nighttime is actually a great time to explore the city because it turns out that there was actually a cruise ship in town earlier today, which is why it was so crowded. But the cruises usually leave before dark, so it's only the locals and tourists who are spending the night on the island who stay here, so far less crowded. Yeah, this is definitely one of the best cities I've seen to explore by night. Everything's beautifully lit up. Yeah, even if you do get lost here, this is definitely not a bad city to get lost in, even at night. It's so beautiful that you just want to keep walking and walking. It's getting a bit dimmer up towards Fort St. Elmo. I'm gonna start heading back towards the center of town. Country with Arabic architecture but a Catholic religion, thanks to the Knights of St. John, and the island is said to have 365 churches, one for each day of the year, and one of the most famous and most spectacular is the St. John Cathedral. A Maltese gem of Baroque architecture, this monastic church, which was completed in 1577, was commissioned by Grand Master Jean de la Cassière to serve as the church for the Order of the Knights of St. John. There's like another church. It's the cool thing about Valletta. Churches are just built and right along with the facades of the other buildings, so sometimes you don't even realize that you're walking by a church. And Malta probably has some of the most beautiful churches in the world on the inside. And here you can see just one of the many forts that were built by Jean de Valette. In this area right here, that looks like it was dug out with a backhoe, that was actually the moat. A very, very deep moat. You can hear some guy back there speaking Maltese. Now, the thing about the Maltese language is that there's no other language similar to it on Earth. So it has its own unique language group. The closest language to Maltese is Maghrebi Arabic. They can understand about 50%. The good news is that you don't have to worry about communication, because since the island was a British colony from 1814 up until 1964, the official language here is actually English. That was so beautiful. Definitely one of the coolest cities I've ever been. But I only have less than 24 hours on the island. I really don't want to leave. I want to try to see and show you as much of the island as possible. The good news is that the island isn't that large, so we should be able to knock it all out tomorrow. I'll see you then. A Tuesday morning in Valletta. I hate to say goodbye to that cool little hotel, but we only have about 7 hours left to see the rest of the island, so we need to get going. Where do we catch the bus to Rabat?
It's just around here, man.
Or where do we buy the tickets? Here or?
The tickets you pay on the bus.
Okay, and how much is it?
€2 each.
Okay, thank you. Well, before, just outside the main gate of Mdina, over here you can see the city walls, which would have once been surrounded by a moat. The city that grew up a prehistoric Bronze Age settlement has origins in the 8th century BC during Phoenician times. We saw the elevated plateau as a natural defense against their enemy. Then around 218 BC, it had come under the control of the Romans, who named it Megaliths, a town that also incorporated parts of present-day Rabat and was much larger than modern Mdina. The town of Mdina developed in the 11th century during the Arab occupation as a walled city, and in fact, in the Arabic language, Mdina actually means walled city. For more than 2,000 years, Mdina served as the island's capital until the Knights of St. John arrived on the island in 1530 and decided they wanted to base themselves on the coast. Virtually overnight, the city had lost all its political importance, earning it the nickname the Silent City. The town, which is just 1 square mile and home to just 240 people, was divided into 2 sections, a medieval section and an 18th century section. This is the result of a massive earthquake that occurred in 1693, which destroyed the entire east section of the city, which in the 18th century was completely redesigned in a French Baroque style. The Palazzo of Valletta is probably the finest example of French Baroque architecture. This magisterial palace, which was commissioned by Grand Master Valletta, was constructed in the 1720s and was the seat of the local government called Università. In addition, it also served as a hospital and sanatorium for British troops, specifically during the cholera outbreak of 1837. After suffering significant bomb damage during World War II, it was restored and since 1973 has served as the island's natural history museum. When the Grand Master decided to build his palace, the entrance to the city aligned perfectly with the middle of his building. So, of course, being the Grand Master, he built himself a monumental new city gate adorned with his own coat of arms and military items used to defeat Muslims. Quite a looking church you see behind us is St. Agatha's Chapel. Behind us is St. Paul's Cathedral. The local legend says it was built on the site of a church that was constructed to honor the site where St. Paul in the 4th century converted the Roman governor Publius to Christianity. It was only after the Great Earthquake that the church was replaced with this Baroque masterpiece. However, one can still see the original 900-year-old Irish bogwood door. Archbishop's Palace, and on this square you can see examples of the various architectural periods. And this building here actually still has its original 13th century ground floor, making it one of only 2 surviving buildings in the city. That this island town feel exactly like Arabian town. I don't even feel like I'm in Europe right now. I feel like I'm in some small town in North Africa. Malta is a great place to come if you want to get a feel of what the Middle East was like before Islam took over. The constant Catholic churches still remind us that we are in fact in Europe. Modern but still has an exotic vibe. A true cultural crossroads between Europe and North Africa. No wonder that Hollywood has used this as a stand-in for North Africa and Arabia. Now, although the French contributed a lot, they also plundered many of the town's treasures, so it's no surprise that this became the birthplace of the resistance movement against the French. Surrounding the walls of Mdina is the historic town of Rabat. You might recognize that name from Arabic. It's actually a Semitic word meaning fortified town or suburb because it was once a suburb of adjoining Mdina. It essentially started as a quarry in the late Phoenician and early Roman period. It was built atop the foundations of the ancient Roman city of Melita. In the 15th century, it served as a safe haven for religious orders fleeing from pirate attacks. And I mentioned suburb. Here in Malta, it's often very difficult to tell where one town ends and the other begins. And that's because there's very little empty space on the island. Malta is actually the 10th smallest country in the world and the 4th most densely populated. We're talking a population of about 516,000 people crammed into an area of just 112 square miles. The entire territory of Malta technically constitutes a single urban area, and for this reason many geographers have increasingly begun to classify Malta as a city-state.
كنت فرزرها في الجرة طول الماضية في الودي Hem kont immur dokra l-merħla jew biex intajjar il-ħamin ma missir immur naħdem lili Isla saqinassa skont iż-żmien Għal-kem bir tal-lim fl-iskola għat mistenniġ ħadbin minir Għana ħelu bħata skur jowraġ min għalta kampanjur Versi ġirpa l-isbafju jikber fil-għalta kampanjur
Yeah, this one, yeah, Tarxien. Oh no.
fil-kamra ġej mill-musbih id-dinja tara balun it-triq u x-xemx torqos imma jidherx mhux tajda oħra biex tikxef l-art mis-silx
Autobusami jeździł, cały dzień zajmuje, to też przesadzałam. Malta is probably most famous for these megalithic temples whose origins still remain shrouded in mystery. The largest of these temples is Tarxien. Thanks to sophisticated methods of Dr. Temi Zamid, what we do know is that they were built sometime between 3600 and 2500 BC for religious purposes. Burned bones found at the site indicate that the prehistoric people practiced animal sacrifice. Being briefly abandoned and repurposed as a crematorium during the Bronze Age. The temple's design suggests segregation of day-to-day life. As it was only unearthed in the early 1900s, the complex offers a treasure trove of archaeological information not found in any of the island's other temples. That was by far the most unique. Firstly, it contains 3 pairs of asps instead of the usual 2. Second, stone rollers left at the site provide a rare insight into how these mysterious structures were constructed. Thirdly, it lacked refined interiors. And lastly, the site contains the finest collection of Neolithic artwork on the island, including the oldest anthropomorphic representation in Mediterranean prehistory, all made from refined stone, a sophisticated process at that time. The most famous relic unearthed at this site is the Fat Lady, or fertility goddess, but it's in fact a sexless figurine, though this is not the original. The original relics from this site were taken to the Archaeological Museum in Valletta. One of the only originals that remain are this bowl and these mysterious oracle holes with their stone covers. The Tarxien project was the largest archaeological undertaking in the island's history and helped put Malta on the map and seal its national identity and inspire cultural preservation. Sadly though, much of the site was poorly reconstructed in the 50s and 60s, so for that reason it's not as popular with tourists, but these are the main reason I came to Malta, and you can't come here without visiting at least one of these, and this one's the closest to Valletta and the most easily accessible. Another legacy left behind by the Arabs is the food. It's amazing how many different cultures have passed through here and all left their mark on the island. It's rare to find sites from so many different cultures on such a small island. Definitely one of the coolest places I've ever been. Malta is a place that has fascinated me for years, and I cannot think of a better place to wrap up our Mediterranean adventure. It is unlike any other place in Europe, and I feel honored to have had a chance to experience this mysterious land, even just for a couple days. Though there's still room for improvement, and it may not be ideal for budget travel, Malta was by far the most pleasant of the 3 countries I visited. The one thing that makes or breaks a place for me is its people, and unlike Romans, the Maltese still possess virtues of respect, order, cleanliness, humbleness, and honesty, and sometimes that's more important than having the grandest sights. The Vatican felt more like a private estate than a country, And let's just say the Trevi didn't receive a donation from me.
Malta